Man, I sure hope you're enjoying the rain because you're probably going to see quite a bit more, especially if you are in Indiana and Ohio. There is a system making its way through that's going to bring a super soaker of rainfall. Some places could see greater than 2 inches of rain in a few spots. In this video, we're going to talk about how much rain you're going to see, as well as the severe weather threat that might be attached to this. Right now, the potential does not look all too impressive. And then also what the cloud cover might look like for the total solar eclipse. 8:38 a.m. and it is March 30th. It probably sounds like I'm a little tired. Welcome to another update of Great Lakes weather. Hope everybody is doing well today. And we are talking about a system that is pretty robust and is getting a lot of attention on the news media regarding a lot of rainfall and the potential for severe weather. You've probably heard that it could extend into the Great Lakes region. While that is true, current models suggest that it is not looking extremely impressive. But again, that's very likely going to change because right now models are really all over the place with this system. So I'm not really going to draw a line on exactly who's going to see severe weather. But what we're going to do is we're just going to examine a few models, get an idea of what things are currently looking like, what variables might change. There are a few variables that are currently not making the setup all too impressive. So we're going to dive right in with the current forecast for today because there is a marginal risk out for Ohio, and I do want to touch on that a little bit because that could get a little bit interesting. Let's dive right into it. Let me pull up my screen here. Hopefully everybody can see it now. There we go. So this is the Storm Prediction Center. Again, marginal risk for severe weather across portions of Ohio and extreme eastern Indiana. I was just down there earlier this week in Lakeview with a lot of cleanup still ongoing, so it's probably not a good thing to hear that there's another severe weather threat. The thing about the severe weather threat is that it is overall quite low. It doesn't look like it's going to be too significant, but there is going to be some isolated severe thunderstorms. Tornado potential is low with these. It's mainly going to be a hail threat that's attached to these, okay? Not really going to be dealing with damaging winds, not really with tornadoes. Doesn't look to be too supportive of those kinds of threats. So we're watching this marginal risk for severe thunderstorms across portions of Ohio. Could be some pop-up storms behind a line that's moving through, similar to the setup we had in March 14th, but not as good kinematics with this setup that will favor things such as tornadoes and damaging winds. So we're going to look at that real quick, but first I want to talk about what is kind of fueling this setup over the next few days, this multi-day severe weather event that is definitely going to be occurring across portions of the Mississippi River Valley. I'm not sure how far it's going to extend into the Great Lakes region. We'll look at that in just a minute, but you can see this trough on the back side right here at the 500 millibar level. So again, up high in the atmosphere, we have a trough that's making its way through. Progressing this forward, you can see that it kind of builds right here across portions of southwestern United States, and then there's going to be an ejection, a trough ejection, making its way towards the Great Lakes region come into Tuesday morning. Now that's the key thing. There's a lot of discussion about how much the Great Lakes region is going to be impacted by this system. Now you can see around 4 p.m. Monday, time of where we're at peak daytime heating, you can see that there is showing some energy being pushed through at the 500 millibar level at this time. Now the question is, will that energy be enough to foster severe weather development? I'm not sure yet. Instability does not look too supportive of that at this current time. It looks like it's going to be displaced farther south, sticking itself into extreme southern Indiana and probably extreme southern Ohio. I don't think it's going to get up to northern Indiana at this time. Likely probably going to see mainly rain up in that region. But you can see that the energy really makes its way in on Tuesday at about 7 a.m., which again, timing not ideal for severe weather because you don't really have as much instability fueling that. But by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon, that would be a time to watch southern Indiana and much of Ohio as that makes its way through, because there could be some severe weather development across especially the Ohio region if you can get the instability and lack of prior convection prior to the arrival of this setup, this system. So you look at the 700 millibar layer, and I'm guessing there's going to be kind of a similar story. I actually haven't looked at it just yet. But progressing it forward, you can see by the time we get into Monday, I actually am I see a little bit more mid-level energy that could make its way into portions of Indiana and Ohio. So that's something to watch out for. If we get that mid-level energy and that upper-level energy to kind of come together, I would be a bit more interested in a severe weather setup for this region. But another thing that we're going to be dealing with is instability. And right now, instability does not look all too that impressive. You can see right here, Really, generally, with a setup for a high shear event, we do want instability values greater than 500. We do have that in extreme southern Indiana, but up here you can see that portions of central Indiana, you do have that as well. But honestly, with the convection that will already be ongoing likely, I really think you will probably want to get cape values closer to 1500 to 2000. It's going to be kind of interesting to see how instability builds. And again, the convective aligning models haven't really come out for this setup just yet. Another thing to point out is the hodographs. Hodographs do not really support tornado threat currently on Monday afternoon based on what the current models are saying. You can see that it's better supportive in areas farther out to the west where that cold front's moving in, but along the warm frontal boundary, it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. And right now, it's not really evolving into anything too significant according to models, but again, that could change. We'll probably do an update on Easter Sunday given the setup, but we'll see how things pan out. If I am to chase, I'm probably going to head to Muncie again, place that I started my chase on March 14th in again, but I got to wait to see how this is going to evolve because, again, models are all over the place. Not really in great agreement on the southern Great Lakes region with this setup. So let's see how this looks on a weather map. So progressing it forward, we're kind of focusing Indiana now. We're going to go to Ohio later on. But as we get into Sunday, you can see that there is the chance for a bit of convective development across portions of Indiana. Get a sounding out ahead of that. Not really. You do have some instability. You do not really have that low-level support, that surface level support. In this case, you do have low cloud bases set up here, but again, I don't think Sunday is going to be a big deal. Looks like it will mostly be dry for a lot of the Great Lakes region. Progressing it forward, you can see that some storms could possibly develop Sunday afternoon across portions of the Indiana region, and there is a marginal severe setup. Again, instability though is going to be interesting to kind of try to grab, and also cloud base will be elevated. They really have to attach along that warm front better in order for them to be a bit more significant, and right now that doesn't look to be the case. Looks like it's just going to be some heavy rain for portions of Indiana. By the time we get into Monday, you see there's convection ongoing across portions of Indiana and Ohio, shown on the latest model from the Euro. Progressing it forward, you can see things start to develop around 1 p.m. You can see some convection begin to develop in portions of northern Indiana. Again, elevated cloud base it looks like you got there. Southern Indiana has better severe weather potential, I'd say. You got that lower cloud base. You have good speed shear in the atmosphere. It doesn't really look like to have much directional shear that would favor more of a tornadic setup, but it does look like it could produce damaging winds and possibly some large hail. So that'll be in southern Indiana around 1 p.m. 4 p.m. and we get to 7 p.m. You can see that there's a lot of storms starting to develop across portions of the Great Lakes region. Also moving into Ohio as well. You can see a storm cells firing near Dayton. Get a sounding around there. See some nice speed shear there. A little bit of a better hodograph, but not really too good in that case. You do have cape values close to 500. You do have good SRH though. Good spin in the atmosphere for these storms that will be making their way in. So that's going to be something to watch out for. But as we go into the overnight hours, you can see the storms begin to make their way through Indiana. Again, you have that better push of energy coming Tuesday morning, and that will move through. And it may move through fast enough to where we would miss out on some severe weather across portions of Indiana and Ohio. So that's kind of the issue right now, is figuring out exactly how much energy will we be dealing with on Monday, how much convection will we be dealing with. That's really the question at place. And where is that warm front going to be? That's another question we really have to examine, because storms will have to settle up along that warm front in order to become stronger or have a better setup for certain things. But one thing that we really need to watch out for is the rainfall. I think there could be some flooding, maybe even some flash flooding with this, because there's going to be a lot of rain between now and Wednesday, and that's already in addition to the rain that we're seeing across portions of southern Michigan and northern Indiana right now. But look at some of these totals that are being put out by the models. You have close to 6 inches of rain coming on the Euro model across portions of central Indiana and central Ohio. That's a lot of rain to be dealing with over a few days. So you're going to be dealing with probably some localized flooding in some spots across that region. GFS kind of has some agreement, doesn't really put out as much rainfall, but it does put out a decent amount of rainfall in a similar area across eastern Indiana, western Ohio. So this region right here across central Indiana, central Ohio should be watching out for some heavy rainfall continuing across the region over a series of the next few days. I think Easter Sunday will probably be a little drier than most of the days, but again, it's going to be periods of just heavy rainfall and then breaks, heavy rainfall, breaks, and then we're watching that potential for some possible severe weather that could occur. I'd have the RAP pulled up, but we're not going to look at that too much. Monday morning, it does appear to show that convection begins to make its way out, and then we'll see if that warm front and that low shifts northward, because models have trended the low to be a little bit faster in previous runs, so if that does continue, it might be a more interesting day on Monday. So again, here's the HRRR. Now I want to focus a little bit on that setup for severe weather that is today across portions of Ohio. You progress it forward, and you can see that there is going to be some convection possible that develops behind that line of rain that's moving through currently this morning. As it moves through, you begin to see some convection make its way and pop up. It doesn't look too robust on the models, but if you get a sounding, this is just east of Van Wert, Ohio, you get a marginal tornado setup, you get low cloud bases, you have some directional shear present, good instability, good 3 cape at that surface level. SRH is not really that strong, but it is enough to foster enough for some updrafts, but at the same time your hodograph still looks pretty sloppy, does still look to support more of a hail threat more than anything else. So hail threat's probably going to be the main thing with those cells as they make their way through. And you see that they kind of organize a little bit, but it doesn't look like they're going to be too widespread or too active. Looks like to be mainly an isolated event. And then we're watching for storms on Sunday across portions of Indiana and Ohio once again. Again, these storms don't look to be too strong either. You get a sounding, though. You do see that there is a lot of interference in the SKU-T chart, but you can see that there's good directional shear at the surface. Again, not really too much instability it looks like it's going to be dealing with. HRRR is not really going to probably handle this super well just yet, so we don't really want to draw too many conclusions based on that. Making its way through, you can see this is the farthest the model goes out. It stops with convection across northern Indiana, northern Ohio at about 1 a.m. So it is shifting the gradient for rainfall a little bit further to the north, which means there could be a better setup for thunderstorms further to the south, so that's something we'll be watching out for as well. Again, I'm playing all of this off the models, okay? So a lot of the stuff you're hearing from me, I'm just playing it all by what I'm observing with the models, so not drawing any conclusions yet. I'm just looking at the raw model data, and you guys can also look at the raw model data for yourself as well if you go to the same website I am at also. So you can see that that low is continuing to make its way through. The NAM also shows convection showing up across portions of northern Ohio behind that line of convection that makes its way through. It does show sort of a better environment. I mean, it does show a stronger cap in the atmosphere. Cape values are lower also. In addition to that, one model that again is an experimental model, but it's good to draw conclusions, or it's good for getting an idea of some things that could happen, is the RFS. And again, it's an experimental model, but it has been doing a very good job with previous setups. So if you get a sounding at around 4 p.m., you can see that there is a better setup for severe weather, good instability, good surface level cape, low cloud bases, high cloud tops, improved hodograph, but not too great for tornadoes. You do have a little bit of a nudge in there. Better spin in the atmosphere, so RFS plays it a little bit stronger than the other models, and it starts over portions of, I'd say, east of Van Wert, north of Indian Lake, it looks like. So it's going to progress its way east-southeast, make its way through, and then we'll be watching for Sunday and Monday set up for some storms later on. But that's something we're watching out for. Also, one thing to point out that I haven't really touched on too much is the potential for snow across portions of Michigan, northern Michigan. There is potential for that to occur as well. So if we progress it forward, you can see as we make our way through, see that convection makes its way through. On the back side of this, some models have been hinting at rain continuing to kind of lag behind the main low as it deepens out to the east, and bringing some snow to portions of Michigan and even parts of northern Indiana. We might get a burst of cold air on the backside that could bring some snow to portions of Michigan, Indiana, even into portions of Ohio, which is going to be interesting because we're going to have some pretty warm weather across portions of Ohio during the day on Monday, but then it's going to start to cool down, and we might see some snow on the backside, which again probably be the last snow of the season. I don't really think we'd have much snow after that. So, but again, just something to look out for as well. Now let's take a look at the model ensembles for cloud cover for the solar eclipse, and we're going to just focus specifically on the Great Lakes region here. This is the Canadian model. Okay, you can see that the Canadian model focuses mainly more clouds than sun. Okay, but it does show partly cloudy skies likely across portions of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, and you can see that path of totality that's kind of hinted out on the screen there as well. It shows northwest Ohio and southern Indiana as the possible places for totality. Now, again, you'll be able to see the solar eclipse across much of Michigan and northern Indiana as well, but the path of totality is focused across Ohio and Indiana. So that's the one place that could see the 100% coverage. Now, the American model is different. Okay, the American model does in fact show much more cloud cover than sun. In fact, 62% or percentage of cloud cover across a given area. So that's showing much more cloud cover, especially across portions of Michigan. So right now, models still aren't drawing a good conclusion as to how this is going to evolve. So really, the summary of this video is models are inconclusive about a lot of things today, and that's kind of going to be the case probably up until later on Sunday, especially when we get those convective aligned models to push into Monday. So still a lot of questions here at play, but I will say a lot of rain is coming for next week, so you're definitely going to want to be ready. Make sure to subscribe and stay updated. We'll have another update once the convective aligned models get a better grasp on the setup for Monday, and we'll determine if it's probably going to be a chaseable setup or not. Right now, it's not looking like I'm going to chase it, but if it looks better as we get into a better model data, then I may go out and investigate it. But thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully this video was helpful. I did talk about a lot of stuff. It took quite a bit of time this time, but hopefully I didn't talk too fast and you covered it all. But thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good Resurrection Sunday, and I'll see you all later.